All right, everybody, we're going to go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. This is Kaustubh Jagtap, or KJ, and I'm the Director of Product Marketing here at SafeBreeze. I want to thank everyone for taking the time to join our webinar and our interactive webinar today. Just a quick few housekeeping items before we go ahead and get started. This webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be shared with all the participants and all the attendees after the webinar is completed. This webinar will also be available on our website under the resources section and on our YouTube channel. At any given point of time, if you feel like you have any questions about the content that was shared today or in general about the SafeBreeze platform, please feel free to use the Q&A functionality that's available in Zoom webinar, and we shall be answering all the questions after the Q&A, after the demo is complete during the Q&A session. With that being said, let's go ahead and get started. I want to introduce myself. I'm KJ, or Kaustubh Jagtap. I'm the Director of Product Marketing here at SafeBreeze, and our other speaker today is one of our amazing star senior PMs out of our Israeli office, Shira Akov. Shira has been now with the company for close to 2.5 years, and she is amazing in everything that she does in terms of the product. So she is a great person to give you insight about how our SafeBreeze Studio capability or red teaming capability works today. With that being said, just a brief background about SafeBreeze. SafeBreeze platform was created to provide security teams with a holistic point of view that directly ties into the organizational business risk. SafeBreeze allows organizations to replicate a hacker's mindset so that you, the organization or enterprise, can continuously validate the efficacy of your deployed security controls against the latest threats. We help you understand what your attack surface looks like and which threat groups pose the greatest threat to your business risk and your overall organizational risk, and help you understand the security posture. This philosophy of wanting to help you better protect your organization has led us to create a lot of new capabilities in the platform, one of which we're going to look at today, which is our SafeBreeze Studio. But before that, we want to understand, what are some of the challenges with traditional red teaming? Traditional red teaming is typically, everybody has heard of red teaming. Red teaming is very popular. We oftentimes get confused at shows. Are you a red teaming solution? Are you not? Traditional red teaming, as you know, they offer point-in-time insights. You're running a red team exercise at a particular point of time. It's expensive to staff because you require experts with specific expertise that can help you identify, what are some of the gaps in your environment. And again, but this is also it's very limited in scope because, you get all these experts, you tell them this is what I need to do, and they go about doing their business. But if something else has to change, if the scope of the exercise changes, then they'll have to reconfigure everything that they need to do and define a different way of attacking. So again, being point in time, being expensive, it can be really restricting or be really limited in scope. Kind of the same thing that it's not flexible, it's not scalable. You can't test one business unit at a time. You probably have to test 1 or 2 business units at a time with a certain set of attacks. You won't be able to run it across your entire network or a certain sets of network segments, because then that just becomes too much of a downtime for your production environment, because you can't run red teaming exercises without having some sort of a business challenge where you're trying to run an exercise and something breaks or something doesn't go well. And in terms of the scope, the breadth, the depth of coverage, it all kind of depends on what your objective is. You won't be able to. It also depends on the expertise of the red teamer. If you want to run a specific kind of an attack, they might have the expertise to do that. But if you tell them, hey, why don't you try running ABC or validate how my performance is against some new threat, they may or may not have the tools. So there is always a challenge with the lack of expertise, or not lack of expertise, I'm sorry, lack of coverage in the attack coverage that you want to test your organization against. So in terms of approaches of how you can build a better red team, and again, this is not a product pitch, this is just an idea of what are some of the rules that you can leverage to build a better red team, here are our top 5 recommendations of how you can actually go ahead and build a scalable and more efficient red team. So the first thing here is understanding, the goals. What are the goals of this exercise? It's before you start a red teaming exercise, it's very important to map out what the total goal of the overall goal of the exercise is, and which threats and scenarios will help you achieve that goals. And it's also important to remember that, just because one organization is running a certain red teaming exercise with certain scenarios, that particular exercise would be applicable to you. It's very important to remember that red teaming is not one size fits all. Every vertical will have their own goals, their own challenges, and they will have to determine, and even in that particular same vertical, every organization would have to determine what threat can cause the most damage to their business. So they will focus their efforts on that kind of threat or that particular threat actor. So it's very important to realize that, at the end of the day, what are the goals? You need to have clearly defined roles of your red teaming exercise that is specific and customized to your organization, and not what some of your peers are running or what you might have heard that let's just test against this latest threat. That's not how a good red teaming exercise would work. The second one is around metrics and communicating these metrics. There are several different functions that are involved during a red teaming exercise, right from the actual analysts or the actual people who are running this exercise to the executives and the key stakeholders who want to understand how successful was this red teaming exercise. And when you run this red teaming exercise, have those results been easy to communicate to those stakeholders so that they can understand where your gaps are and what are some of the steps that have been taken to fix those gaps. It's important to remember that results should be in a format that are easily actionable by multiple teams. So if there are gaps, the responders need to understand where my gaps are and they can take immediate action against them. If it comes to security executives, they need to be able to understand those results and make the right business decisions, make investment decisions if you're having gaps and you need to buy new tools or replace new tools. So it's very important to have metrics in a way that are representative for the red team, that are easy to understand and easy to take action against. The next thing is having like a repeatable methodology so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time you run a red team exercise. Because you're talking about building a scalable, more efficient red team. You want to be able to run these red teaming exercises in a way that is scalable. You need to be able to have a repeatable methodology. Maybe you want to run it every quarter, every 6 months, every month. And of course, as you scale in your organization, you want to test it against different business units. You need to have some sort of a repeatable methodology in place so that you don't have to go ahead and go redefine, find those original goals, modify them. You don't want to have in this repeatable methodology, you need to have, typically it kind of comprises of 3 stages. The first one is, having the ability to define those attacks and attack in the exact same manner so that you have the baseline set, so that you're actually comparing apples to apples and you are removing or reducing any bias that you might have. And so, once we define our scenarios and once we define our adversary goals, making sure that we need to ensure that we are able to repeat the process again and again and in a consistent manner. The next thing is, being able to process the results and understand what they mean for your priorities and for your business risk. So it's very important to have this methodology where you run similar tests or the same tests over a period of time and analyze the exact results, as we talked about metrics, in the same manner so that people can understand, has your posture gone up or has it gone down? The fourth one is around having a red teaming exercise and understanding its effects on your complex security ecosystem. So every enterprise has a large-scale enterprise has a complex security ecosystem where they have multiple tools and multiple people managing those tools. And so how do we ensure that the results of this red team exercise are consistent and contextual, as well as at the same time actionable by these different teams or different tools so that your gaps are identified rapidly and they're fixed rapidly. And so it's important for every single stakeholder that's involved in these red team exercises to understand the impact of these exercises against your tools and how well are your deployed installed tools in your ecosystem able to handle these red team exercises, and are they able to take appropriate action to fix those identified gaps. The last thing here again is automation. If you want to scale up, scale down, or you want to make process more repeatable, consistent, automation is that key to implement and achieve scalability. When you implement a particular use case or threat scenario, we need to be able to iterate it automatically on the next go, so that if you have to go up or down in terms of your scaling, if you want to add new business units, you're able to easily do that and without manually repeating these steps again and again. And what this basically does for the organization is it allows you to focus your man hours, woman hours, or just time on the remediation aspect rather than worrying about has this test been run accurately. You can take all these steps, you can automate the entire process, run the test, analyze the results, and then just focus your effort on fixing the gaps so that you get a more secure environment or more secure organization, and your security posture is improved. So then kind of how can you actually do that? I mean, can SafeBreach allow you to do that? Yes. We have SafeBreach Studio, which is the industry's first low-code, no-code platform for red teaming. And I'm not going to go through all the bullet points here. It's going to show you the platform in action. Essentially, because we are the industry leader in coverage, our attack play, because over 30,000 attacks wide, we provide coverage for the latest threats, and we have a 24-hour SLA. We have a depth of coverage. So you can choose to customize your attack scenarios based on what you feel is appropriate for your organization. We have several vertical focus scenarios, vertical focus attacks that you can then choose to run for your particular organization. In terms of skill, we've purposely created this low-code, no-code platform so that you don't need the specific expertise of somebody needing to have like 10 years of red teaming experience. We have a easy to understand, easy to use drag and drop interface for people who are new to red teaming. But at the same time, we have the ability to use Python code to create complex red team scenarios if you have someone who is an expert in red teaming. Because kind of coming to consistency, because we have all of this built inside our platform, it's easy to scale up or down. We provide you the insights that can easily be passed on to your tools for easy remediation. You can easily then pivot into creating reports and dashboards for your executives so that they can understand this. And then you have the ability to understand, and with our dashboards, you can understand, has your posture gone up or down, and where are the gaps? And lastly, in terms of the alignment, because we have the most integrations amongst all other BAS vendors, you can easily share remediation results, your contextual results for prompt action that can reduce your mean time to detect and mean time to respond. And we even have the ability, if you have any vulnerabilities that you're worried about, we have the ability of adding that simulation context for quick risk-based vulnerability management. Now, enough of me talking. Let me go ahead and pass it on to Shira, who can give you a quick overview of these capabilities and how the SafeBreach platform can help you build a scalable red team. Over to you, Shira.
Great, thanks, KJ. So yeah, I'd be happy to share a quick demo of SafeBreach Studio in action, as KJ said. So I'm going to share my screen. Hope everyone can see my screen. So yeah, as KJ mentioned, SafeBreach Studio is a very exciting capability that we've released. Basically, if we kind of, just as an overview, if we look at the navigation bar over here, this kind of represents our user journey within the platform. The first step is, this again ties into what KJ was talking about, is really understanding what your goals are and what you're trying to test, what threats you're interested in running within your environment. And we have a variety of ways to do that. One is using these templates out of the box scenarios that we provide that can be a great jumping off point. And we've got lots of different categories that represent the different types of threats. So that's one way. Of course, it's all fully customizable, but you can also use other tools. You can also create your very own attacks from scratch using Python code. You can use our threat intelligence integration, which allows pulling indicators directly from your threat intelligence feed. So there are a variety of ways of kind of choosing what you want to run within your environment. Once you've run those attacks within your environment, you can use our various analysis tools to understand what the gaps are and prioritize them. And then you can use our remediation and reporting functionalities to really pass that information along to the relevant teams so that you can make sure that you're both fixing your security posture as quickly as possible and communicating it onwards to executives, board of directors, etc. So kind of our focus here today is showing a little bit about our more advanced studio capabilities. So I'm going to be using a scenario that we've kind of built ahead of time. That's kind of a more complex scenario that represents a lateral movement attack that uses several methods. So let's start out here. And we can walk through it. So as you can see, we've got 4 steps here in this scenario that I loaded. The first 2 steps have to do with credential harvesting and discovery, which then continue on to the actual lateral movement activities. Each one of these steps is defined according to a specific attack, as you can see. And kind of the interesting thing here, well, first of all, we can see that there is some logic already implemented where there's a branching here. We're saying if this lateral movement activity isn't successful, we want it to continue, and if not, then we'll finish the simulation. But we can also do this kind of our new capabilities, branching capabilities allow us to do a lot of kind of interesting things. So for example, if we want to add another step here, another logical step. So kind of the idea here is we can say, if we're able to harvest credentials via Mimikatz, we want to continue on to the next step. If not, if you're not able to harvest those credentials, we want to try a different type of method. In this particular case, I'm going to call it Lasagna, which is a different method of credential harvesting. I'll click here. In this particular case, again, I know what I'm looking for, and I'll select this particular attack. So basically what I'm doing here is I can choose this branch and define the logic that I want to use. So here specifically, for example, sorry, if I got the credentials, meaning that the credentials exist, I want to continue on to this next stage. And if not, meaning that the credentials are empty, then I want to continue on to this Lasagna stage. In the same way, I can then carry out another condition that ties it back to the original flow. So we can say here again, if we define this branch, that if credentials exist, then it'll continue back to the flow. And if not, then it'll end our attack flow. So that's kind of an example of some of the branching logic that we can implement using SafeBreach Studio. There are also some additional capabilities here. So for example, the option to add sleep between steps. This is something that allows for creating a more stealthy attack, which is something that attackers often use in order to avoid detection by certain security controls. So this is something that can be configured here as well, in order to make sure that you're truly getting accurate information about how well your controls are able to withstand certain types of attacks. So once we have all of these attacks in place, we know what our flow is. we're gonna choose the simulators that we're gonna run them on. Some of these are eligible, some of them are not, based on all kinds of various attack requirements. Once I select these, I can see that all of my steps, I've got a green indication that all of my steps can be run on the simulators that I selected, and I can then run that test. You can also see here that this is kind of an easy way to understand exactly what kind of attack we're looking at for each step. Additional steps can be added, of course. It doesn't have to be just one attack for one step, and we can always add additional steps along the way. Configuration of data assets and proxies, etc. So this is really a very, very flexible tool for building very complex attacks in some cases according to your needs. So after we run this test, we can also save it and run it later. We are able to, here in this case, we can go to our dashboards and view the results. So this is, I already ran the test ahead of time. We can see some of the results here. So we've got some overall widgets showing us, the type, how many attacks types were run, how many MITRE techniques were tested as part of this test, the total number of simulations, a breakdown by the different MITRE tactics, and for each one of those MITRE tactics, how well controls were able to block it or not block it. And then if we scroll down, we also have the ability to kind of break it down according to the various phases of the attack. So we can see that here, the first step where we were harvesting credentials with Mimikatz, this attack was actually blocked. So the attack was not successful. It then continued on to the lasagna stage according to the branching logic that we configured. Here, the attack was successful. The attack was missed by security controls. We can see information according to the various two simulators that we ran these attacks on. And this is kind of our way of following through the different steps of the attack and understanding what was achieved, what attacks were able to be completed, and which ones were stopped along the way by various security controls or other elements within your network. So this is really a tool for analyzing. This is something that can, of course, be downloaded and shared. And that's kind of an example of a flow of how you can use Safe Breach Studio to create complex attack flows with various logic, with various advanced capabilities. But as KJ mentioned, it's also a very intuitive drag and drop interface, meaning that you don't have to be a red teaming expert in order to build those attacks that are of interest to you. So I hope that was interesting for everyone, and I will hand it back over to you, KJ.
So much, Shira. So that was in terms of the demo, that was it. So if you have any questions, kindly use the Q&A function. We do have a couple of questions that we've received here. So this is a quick webinar. How can Safe Breach Studio help advanced red teamers?
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. So yeah, as I mentioned, I think the key here is in the flexibility and the fact that this tool can really augment a lot of the existing red teamer flows, both due to the fact that more people, more stakeholders are able to kind of understand what's going on using the interface, really work through it, also using the analysis that I was showing before. And again, the different levels. So if you want, you can create your own customizable attacks. The payloads are customizable. You can really play with it however you want. And you can also kind of use our scenarios out of the box if there are specific threats that you wanna check within your environment. And we're constantly making sure to add more and more capabilities that mimic true attacker behavior, to make sure that we're providing all of those capabilities to the red teams that are using Safe Breach Studio.
Thank you. Next question and last question I think we have here is, does this tool compete with traditional pen testing or red teaming tools, or is it more complementary?
So I'd say it's complementary. In many cases, automated pen testing is more focused on, how your environment can be penetrated, and how where it's vulnerable for breach from the outside. Whereas Safe Breach allows you to really configure the tested environment in a way that you can really leverage to test all of your various controls. It's contextual, as we mentioned before, so you can really make sure that you're setting up the tests and truly testing these attacks in the various segments of your environment where your controls are configured, and making sure that you can really validate them by correlating them to actual events that are occurring within the security controls. So that's a pretty powerful way of kind of making sure that you're not just hypothesizing, but rather really testing the exact things that you want to test in the exact areas of your environment that you're interested in, and getting that information to really know how protected you are from that particular threat.
That is pretty much all the questions that we have until now. So again, thank you to everyone for taking the time to attend our webinar. Thank you, Shira, for this amazing demo. And hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day and the rest of the week. So take care. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for your